Some trucks could haul heavy loads, some trucks could go off-road, and some trucks could kill you. Today, we're ranking the 10 deadliest pickup trucks ever built. Machines so dangerous that they left behind lawsuits, recalls, and tragedy. Buckle up, because number 1 might just be the most infamous death trap in automotive history. Number 10, Chevrolet El Camino SS454, 1970. The 1970 Chevrolet El Camino SS454 was part car, part truck, and part lawsuit waiting to happen. Chevy engineers thought it would be brilliant to stuff a 7.4-liter, 450-horsepower monster engine into what was essentially a modified family sedan. The result? Pure insanity. On paper, it was a pickup with the heart of a race car. In reality, it was like strapping a jet engine onto a shopping cart. The El Camino could fly from 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds, faster than many muscle cars of the day. But here's the problem. Chevy didn't bother upgrading the brakes or suspension. You had 4,000 pounds of steel barreling down the road, stopped only by drum brakes meant for Sunday errands. Owners quickly realized the SS454 was easier to launch than it was to land. Worse yet, the weight distribution was a nightmare. An empty bed meant uncontrollable wheel spin at highway speeds. A loaded bed meant the front end lifted like a boat at full throttle. The suspension twisted so violently that the rear axle would hop sideways, a terrifying dance known as the death wiggle. One journalist described driving it as riding a mechanical bull that's trying to kill you. Insurance companies took notice, and premiums skyrocketed until nobody could afford them. Chevy killed the model after just 1 year, citing emissions rules. But insiders knew the truth. Too many owners were ending up in ditches, trees, and other people's cars. Today, survivors are valuable collectibles, but back then, owning one was like buying a one-way ticket to the emergency room. Number 9, Dodge Dakota convertible, 1989. In the late 1980s, Dodge executives had a brainstorm session that should have stayed in the brainstorming stage. The question, how do we make trucks more exciting? The answer, chop the roof off. And just like that, the Dodge Dakota convertible was born. The only factory-built convertible pickup ever sold in the US. Sounds fun, right? Wrong. Trucks rely on structural rigidity to handle heavy loads and towing. The roof and pillars are critical parts of that structure. By removing them, Dodge basically turned the Dakota into a floppy tin can on wheels. Hit a bump, and the body twisted so much that doors jammed shut. Long drives turned into creaking, groaning nightmares. And the convertible top? A disaster. It wasn't automatic, it wasn't quick, it wasn't even remotely convenient. Instead, it took 2 people, 15 minutes, and a lot of patience to raise or lower. If you got caught in a sudden downpour, your cab and everything inside was toast. Even when you did get the top up, it leaked like a sieve. Rain dripped in, dust blew through, and at highway speeds the wind noise was louder than the engine. Dealers struggled to sell them, moving just 3,759 units. Customers didn't want fun in the sun, they wanted a truck that worked. Dodge learned the hard way that convertibles and pickups go together like peanut butter and motor oil. The Dakota convertible remains a strange automotive footnote, proof that not every idea deserves to see daylight. Number 8, International CXT 2004 to 2008. If trucks are supposed to be big, then International decided to make one absurdly big. Enter the CXT, a pickup so massive, it looked like a semi-truck had a baby with a monster truck. Standing 9 feet tall, 8 feet wide, and stretching over 21 feet long, this beast weighed nearly 14,000 pounds, before you even put anything in the bed. That's the weight of 3 Honda Civics stacked together. The hood was so tall, you literally couldn't see a full-size sedan parked in front of you. International's solution? Be extra careful. That's like selling a chainsaw with a sticker that says, good luck. Parking lots were a nightmare. Forget fitting in garages. The CXT barely fit in most gas stations. Its turning radius was measured in city blocks, and parking one was about as practical as docking a yacht. But the real danger wasn't its size. It was that regular people were allowed to drive it. With no airbags, no crumple zones, and zero stability control, crashes involving a CXT turned catastrophic for everyone else on the road. In accidents, it would literally drive over smaller cars like they weren't even there. International marketed it as the ultimate pickup for $100,000 to $150,000 depending on trim. What they didn't mention was that it was also the ultimate lawsuit waiting to happen. Production ended quietly a few years later, likely because even International realized unleashing these road monsters onto public streets was asking for trouble. Number 7, Reliant Ant, 1960s to 1981. If you thought the El Camino was sketchy, wait until you meet Britain's Reliant Ant. This wasn't just a pickup, it was a three-wheeled pickup. Yes, 2 wheels in the back and 1 up front, like someone tried to design a truck using spare parts from a tricycle. The result, about as stable as a bar stool on an ice rink. The Ant was designed as a work vehicle, but the moment you put cargo in the bed, disaster struck. Weight shifted, balance went haywire, and the single front wheel steered like a shopping cart loaded with explosives. Owners reported that even light loads turned sharp corners into death-defying stunts. Add rain, snow, or a gust of wind, and the Ant spun out like a carnival ride. Backing up was even worse. Thanks to its 3-wheel design, reversing with steering input caused the rear to swing wildly, a phenomenon drivers called reversing terror. Construction sites outright banned them after too many mishaps. One safety inspector famously said watching an Ant reverse was like watching a drunk try to lasso a tornado. So why did anyone buy it? Taxes. In the UK, 3-wheelers were classified as motorcycles, meaning they were cheaper to own. Unfortunately, that savings often cost drivers their sanity, or worse. The Reliant Ant remained in production until 1981, proving that some bad ideas refused to die. Number 6, Nissan Titan, first generation 2004 to 2015. When Nissan decided to challenge Ford and Chevy in the full-size pickup market, they wanted to make a splash. Instead, they made a mess. The first-generation Nissan Titan looked good on launch day, but owners quickly realized it was less of a truck and more of a time bomb on wheels. The problem started with the rear differential, which had seals that failed, letting oil leak out. With no lubrication, the gears would grind until, bang, the entire axle locked up. Imagine cruising on the freeway when your rear wheel suddenly sees at 70 miles an hour. Not fun. But that was just the start. The radiators had defective plastic that cracked, sending coolant into the transmission. By the time owners realized what was happening, both parts were toast, leading to repair bills north of $5,000. Exhaust manifolds cracked so often that some owners replaced them 3 times before hitting 100,000 miles. Worse, those cracks leaked exhaust fumes into the cabin. Then came the brakes. Too small for the Titan's weight, rotors warped quickly, calipers seized, and panic stops turned into pray and hope moments as the truck pulled violently to one side. Electrical gremlins made things even scarier. Gauges failed, windows stopped working, and in some cases the entire system shut down while driving. Imagine your truck going dark on the highway at night. No lights, no steering assist, no brakes. Just 5,500 pounds of steel coasting into chaos. By 2015, Nissan gave up and redesigned the Titan from scratch, but the first gen's legacy lives on, an expensive, unreliable machine that makes used buyers shudder. Number 5, Ford F-250 with 6.0-liter Powerstroke diesel, 2003 to 2007. Few engines are as infamous as Ford's 6.0-liter Powerstroke diesel. Marketed as a heavy-duty workhorse, it instead became one of the most catastrophic engines ever shoved into a pickup. The issues were so widespread that entire shops and industries popped up just to keep them alive. The problems began with the EGR cooler, which frequently ruptured and sent coolant into the engine. Trucks belched white smoke like smoke machines at a rock concert. Next came the head gaskets, so weak they mixed oil and coolant into a frothy chocolate milkshake of destruction. The fuel injection system, overly complex and prone to failure. High-pressure oil pumps failed without warning. Fuel injection modules overheated. Turbos stuck open or closed. And when the oil cooler clogged, the whole engine went into meltdown. The scariest part was how suddenly it all happened. Imagine towing a 10,000-pound trailer when your engine just quits. No boost, no steering assist, no brakes, leaving you coasting helplessly in traffic. That wasn't rare, it was common. Ford's response blamed the owners. They said people weren't maintaining the trucks properly or used bad fuel. Mechanics knew better. Many refused to even work on the 6.0 anymore. Eventually, the aftermarket stepped in with bulletproof kits. Expensive upgrades costing $4,000 to $8,000 just to make the engine reliable. That's right, the engine was so bad that bulletproofing became an entire cottage industry. Number 4, Dodge Ram 2500 and 3500 diesel, 2021 to 2023. You'd think that in the 2020s, automakers had ironed out deadly design flaws. Wrong. Between 2021 and 2023, Dodge's heavy-duty Ram trucks developed a terrifying new trick, catching fire while parked. The culprit was the intake heater grid relay, a simple component meant to warm air for cold starts. In these Rams, the relay overheated, melted, and sometimes ignited. Owners parked their $70,000 trucks in garages, went to bed, and woke up to their houses on fire. At first, the cases trickled in. A Texas owner noticed smoke under the hood and opened it to find flames licking the engine cover. A Michigan truck burned down in a driveway, taking a shed with it. Stellantis, Dodge's parent company, eventually recalled more than 300,000 trucks. But their initial solution: tell owners not to park indoors. Translation: if your truck bursts into flames, at least let it burn outside. Comforting. Number 3, Toyota Tacoma and Tundra frame rust, 1995 to 2010. Toyota has a reputation for bulletproof reliability, but between the mid-90s and 2010, they had a skeleton in their closet, literally. Their truck frames were rusting from the inside out until entire vehicles snapped in half. At first, it seemed like normal surface rust, but this wasn't cosmetic. These frames were rotting unseen, eating away structural steel until catastrophic failure struck. Leaf springs punched through frames. Spare tires fell off at highway speeds. Brake lines snapped when the mounting points disintegrated. The horror stories piled up. One Michigan contractor heard a loud crack while driving. His Tacoma's bed had separated from the cab. Another owner lifted his truck with a jack, only to have the jack punch straight through the frame like it was cardboard. A Tundra owner towing a boat in Ohio watched in shock as the frame broke near the hitch. His trailer literally passed him on the highway before jackknifing into a median. Toyota denied it at first, then blamed road salt, then blamed owners. But after a $3.4 billion class action lawsuit, they admitted the frames weren't properly treated. Thousands of trucks were recalled, and some owners even had their entire frames replaced. A process so extreme that technicians literally lifted the body off, slid in a new frame, and rebuilt the truck. Even today, used buyers still crawl under Tacomas and Tundras to check if the skeleton is crumbling. For a brand built on durability, this fiasco was a nightmare. Number 2, Chevrolet GMC CK 1500 side saddle gas tanks, 1973 to 1987. This one isn't just deadly, it's infamous. In the 70s, GM wanted bigger fuel capacity for their pickups. Instead of redesigning the chassis, they slapped gas tanks on the outside of the frame rails. Safety engineers called it reckless, critics called it murder. And the results? Over 2,000 deaths from fiery crashes. In side impacts, the exposed tanks were often the first thing hit. No frame protection, no crumple zones, just a thin metal shell holding 20 gallons of gasoline. The tanks split open, fuel sprayed everywhere, and sparks turned collisions into infernos. Victims were literally burned alive. For comparison, the side saddle design killed more than 20 times as many people as the infamous Ford Pinto. GM knew from the beginning. Internal memos revealed engineers recommended placing tanks inside the frame, but management overruled them. Sales came first, and when lawsuits started piling up, GM doubled down. They denied problems, pointed to weak federal safety standards, and even launched PR campaigns to defend the design. In 1993, NBC aired a Dateline expose showing side saddle trucks exploding in test crashes. GM struck back, claiming NBC staged the fires with rocket igniters. Even with that scandal, the truth remained. These trucks were rolling bombs. GM never issued a full recall, only $1,000 coupons toward new trucks. Imagine losing family members to a design flaw, only to be offered a discount on another GM vehicle. Decades later, some of these side saddle death traps are still on the road, grim reminders of how corporate greed can literally cost lives. Number 1, Ford Bronco II, 1983 to 1990. If you tried to design the perfect recipe for rollovers, you'd end up with the Ford Bronco II. Short wheelbase, narrow track, high center of gravity, stiff suspension. It was physics' worst nightmare. Ford's own engineers raised red flags during development, recommending the track be widened to improve stability. Management said no, they needed to compete with Chevy's Blazer, and safety wasn't going to slow down sales. In fact, Ford literally removed rollover tests from their evaluation program because engineers refused to drive them. The company's solution? Pretend the danger didn't exist. On the road, the Bronco II lived up to its death trap reputation, swerving to avoid animals, hitting potholes, even making sharp turns at moderate speeds. Any of these could trigger a rollover, and when it rolled violently. Over 800 people died in Bronco II accidents, and thousands more were injured. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety reported its fatality rate was triple that of the already notorious Suzuki Samurai. Ford's response? Blamed the drivers. They said people took corners too fast or didn't maintain proper tire pressure. Lawsuits revealed the truth. Ford knew it was unstable and sold it anyway. The Bronco II was finally killed off in 1990, replaced by the Explorer. Ironically, another SUV that would spark a rollover scandal a decade later. The Bronco II remains a monument to what happens when profit trumps physics. It wasn't just deadly, it was corporate negligence on four wheels.